What's up, guys? Today I'm going to talk about 5 reasons why buying a older flagship phone could be a better option for you than buying a newer budget phone or mid-range phone. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I got the Galaxy Note 10, S10, OnePlus 7, iPhone 10R, just as these example phones here. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so I want to start off with one of my favorite things about older flagship phones is definitely the price. So all of these phones are in like that $300 price point, and I just think that's an awesome price because you're not paying too much and you're getting a lot for the price that you're paying in comparison to a mid-ranger, which you would actually pay a little bit more for these phones. You can see the A52 is going for around like 400 bucks on Amazon, and then we have another popular one, the Redmi Note 10 Pro 350. And again, I'm not saying that these phones are bad by any means. I just want to just sort of give you a perspective on, do you really need a mid-ranger, or would you be happier with an older flagship phone? So I do think price is one of my favorite things. You are getting very powerful phones for the price here. All right, the second reason is the display. So you 9 times out of 10 will get a much better display here. Now with these older phones, they do not have, well, most of them don't have the high refresh rate except for the OnePlus 7 Pro. A lot of them don't, but you can find a few that do. But like these older Samsung panels, what sets them apart from mid-range phones is that these have 2K displays or 1440p displays, like the Samsung Galaxy S10 series. If you got a Note 10 Plus, also that would have a 1440p display. The OnePlus 7 Pro has one of the best displays to me still to this day. 1440p, no punch hole or no notch. It's an absolutely beautiful display, and they have super high PPIs as well. So text and icons and everything looks super crisp. One thing I love about the Note series in particular is that this has a super beautiful screen design as far as the screen to body ratio or the bezel ratio. It is just really thin. It feels like you're just holding a display in your hand. It's a very beautiful design here. So that is one thing that I would say. You're just getting a much higher quality display. So even if you take Apple's their mid-range smartphone, the iPhone SE, if you take that and compare it to the iPhone 10 or the 10s, those have OLED displays, and the iPhone SE, it just has an IPS panel. So I will say that is number 2. You just get very beautiful displays on here, and the OnePlus 7 Pro does have that 90 hertz as well, so it is silky smooth. Alright, so number 3 is definitely going to be the CPU and GPU. So this is actually a pretty big one because most of your older flagship phones are going to outperform pretty much most mid-range phones. I think the Poco X3 Pro will do slightly better in benchmarks and gaming, but there's not a lot of mid-range phones. I can only think of that one. But as far as performance-wise, if you get a older flagship phone with a Snapdragon 855, it'll outperform pretty much any chipset like in the A52 or Redmi Note 10 Pro, and that goes for gaming performance. All of these phones are able to play PUBG at high settings. They're also able to play Call of Duty Mobile at high settings. If you see my S10 gaming test, that's able to play even Fortnite at 60 frames per second, which is absolutely crazy. So performance wise, you are getting a more powerful phone as far as the CPU GPU combo. So I think that is a big reason why I always recommend these for people who want to be serious about gaming, but you don't want to shell out that 400 bucks. And also, you shell out that 400 bucks, you're not even going to get the best gaming performance unless you get something like a Poco X3 Pro, which does have its compromises, even though it's still a good phone, but it does have more compromises than these phones do have. Alright, next would be definitely the bells and whistles that you get with flagship phones here. So unlike most mid-range phones, they're going to be plastic phones, or they're going to have a glass back but with a plastic railing. All of these phones are actually full glass and metal phones. They feel super premium, and they still have premium designs on the front and back. They have good screen to body ratios. So that is one thing that I love. You're getting a really nice build. If you go with like a Note series phone as well, you do get these stylus, which you won't really see on mid-range phones unless it's like a Moto, and these are still the highest quality stylus phones that you can get as well. So if you like to control your device with a stylus, or you like to draw or stuff like that, that's a nice little premium feature that I definitely wouldn't pass up. And also you get some other really cool stuff like wireless power sharing is on a lot of these phones as well. Let me see if I can do it on here. On the S10, I can charge another device. It's kind of like a little premium feature that you get. Boom, if I wanted to do that. And all of these phones are IP68 dust and water resistant as well, which is really nice too, which you won't really find. And all of these phones do have wireless charging as well, so you get a ton of little bells and whistles like with Samsung. You also get the Samsung desktop support too, which is kind of like a flagship feature. Now, one thing that I also noticed is that most mid-rangers are now having the stereo speakers, but I do notice that the ones in the older flagships, they still sound better than the mid-rangers. So just take the S10 for example. So super crisp sound, and also if you get an S10 series phone, they do still retain the headphone jack as well, but just like super loud, crispy sound, great bass. So you do get those bells and whistles, and it's just a really awesome thing to have. Now I'll put cameras at my the end of the list for last, because if you guys have seen mid-range phones, the Pixel 4a, 5a, the Redmi Note 10 Pro, A52, those phones do a crazy exceptional job at image quality. So that is one thing that I will give mid-range phones, crazy image quality. But these phones do have great image quality, especially the iPhone XR. It is just an amazing photo taker. I really like it. All of these phones do a pretty good job, but I would say these Galaxy phones and the older iPhones do an excellent job. But like with the XR, it only has one lens. But when I say that it really keeps up with like even newer phones, if you guys see my comparisons, it is a really nice shooter. So, and also video on here is pretty solid. So I love the XR for pictures. I think it's a very amazing device for that. So the Galaxy phones do a great job taking pictures. I sort of think they're on par, but with the mid-range phones, they just have the crazy 108 megapixel lens, like on the Redmi Note 8 Pro. It just gives you crazy detail, a macro lens and stuff like that. But I do think images are still very good on older flagship phones, so it's not like you're still getting just fantastic photos. So if you guys have checked out my videos on these devices. So yeah, so older flagship phones are definitely, I would consider, and I know someone's gonna ask, so what would be the cons of getting an older flagship phone? And most people bring up software support. So all of these phones, except for the iPhone, if you want to go the iPhone route, basically it's pretty much the opposite of Android. So the iPhone 6s is running iOS 15, so the XR, it will most likely be running iOS 18, 19, if not 20, because of this CPU is so good. But iPhone's getting long, longevity support. Android, this is how they do it on Android. You get 3 years of major OS updates. So all of these phones will be getting Android 12, and that's it. So what will happen is you get 3 years of major updates and then 3 years of security patches. So that's why I tell people you sort of have to weigh that out, because if you get a new mid-range phone, of course you'll get, if it came with Android 11, 12, 13, 14, you're guaranteed 14 and then 3 years if they keep their word. But with these older flagship phones, that is I guess the one con, but it's not really a con to me, because once the 7 Pro gets Android 12, it's not like the phone is unusable. It's still getting security patches for the next 3 years. And you guys have to think about, do you really care about having the latest version of Android? So because every year they usually don't do a major, overhaul. It's usually just very small stuff. If you tell somebody what was the major overhaul from Android 10 to 11, they can't really even name me, 5 things that were like a major change to it. So it's not that big of a deal. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.